We're going to start the closing plenary session. It's rather sad, you know, when you come to the closing. But anyway, we have some announcements to make. We have our traditional passing of the baton, and you know, the Olympic RDA flame moves from one region or country to another, and we'll be doing that in the second half. It's a very different view, by the way, from up here this afternoon that I had on Monday morning. And can you noisy people down the back, please, either move out or sit down? Okay. Well, I was going to say, in fact, though the view is different, you're the real hardcore people, you know, the ones that still stay with us right through the end. And I know it's been a long and exciting week. We've had many different events and satellite events and co-located events. And I think I'd like to thank those of you who take this as an opportunity, because it shows that you, apart from what is all the hard work that's done inside the plenary itself and all the working and interest groups and the BOFs and all the other side meetings, the co-located events are very important, and they, you know, obviously reduce travel and make sure you get lots of time to sit in meeting rooms and do not see the beautiful sights of the cities that we take you to. So the first part of the session, as you know, we've tried this experiment of the communication and coordination. So Larry has kindly, so we had asked for volunteers to help us with the Secretariat with this, and Larry very kindly volunteered. So Larry's going to go through the results of the voting and the different ideas that you chose, so you can see them. And then we'll move on to the closing part of the plenary. Okay, so Larry. Can you put Larry's slides up for me, please? Do you want to sit down?
Just to do something first?
Oh, gosh, yeah, thanks. Just as well you're here, Larry. Sorry. Yes, just a very brief interlude before yesterday in the business session. We had something we wanted to say from the Secretariat about Research Impact Service, and Fotis is kindly going to say 2 words about that, and then we'll go on to the community coordination. Sorry, thanks. What would I do without you?
Okay, thanks, Hilary. My name is Fotis Karagiannis. I work at the RDA Secretariat and also at the RDA Europe project. So we had the idea of tracking publications, papers that have been produced as part of the work of RDA working groups and interest groups. So tracking them automatically in somehow. This will be through the open air data mining algorithm. So we'll prepare a specific acknowledgement text that can be included in your papers, and then this will be tracked automatically. Of course, there can also be a manual way for all the papers that have been published up to now. And, you know, we'll come up with some a news item with some more details how to do it, and we'll have a contact person to report your papers, and then we will also announce the acknowledgement text that will be that can be included in your papers, so that we can track from, I don't know, after summer, possibly, all these papers automatically. So that's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is B. Okay. All right. Thank you. Welcome to Act 3 of this community coordination experiment. We'll spend a few minutes talking about it and talking about the results. First of all, we want to thank everyone who contributed ideas and everyone who voted. And we have a few slides, starting with the process itself. So the first issue is, should we do this again? Did you find this of use? I was surprised at the amount of suggestions that were received. I don't know if that shows enthusiasm for the organization or disappointment with the organization, but there were a lot of suggestions, so that's good. I won't ask for comments now, but you see Lynn's email address on the slide, or the general inquiries address, which is always works. So if you have any strong feelings about don't do this stupid thing again, or please do this every plenary for as long as we can stand it, please send a comment there. All right, so Lynn took these ideas and categorized them, and those of you who voted saw that you got to vote in these categories, pick your top two or however it worked. So we're going to show you those results. The full results will be posted online, I assume. We might breeze through those, but mostly we're going to look at the top one or two vote getters in each of the categories. I may have a few color commentary things about those, but we'll take that as a given. And I think the main thing we need to figure out is whether we can do anything about that. So one of the themes in RDA, from my perspective, for quite a while now, has been too much to do and not enough resources, not enough time, not enough people. And this is sort of another view of that. We're trying to figure out how to coordinate across all these groups. I don't think there will be thousands, but there are already more than we can know. My common joke about it is I would be unable to pass even though I'm on the tab, I would be unable to pass a multiple choice quiz about what the different groups are doing and how they relate to each other. So that's what we're really after here. Is there leverage we're missing? Are there things that are going in opposite directions against each other? What can we do to further coordinate things? So here are some of those ideas. So for the plenary, the top vote getter was to have the plenary working sessions be differently organized, with perhaps defining use cases, having hackathons, organizing across groups in the plenary itself. Use the plenary, the 3 days or so of the plenary, to try and get these groups to work closer together. Of course, there's feedback there. If they're working together, they're not spending as much time working separately, but perhaps working together would be a good idea. The easy one, I think, and this is one that perhaps we could do without many more staff or a whole lot more money, is to expand remote plenary attendance options. So that's, and these two are a good example of things that the Secretariat could do now versus things that would require a little more cooperation from the membership and or more money. So I would say that the Secretariat could look at that, expand remote plenary attendance options and do what's possible. They're very constrained in terms of their resources, but that's been useful. I ran one breakout session, and it was very useful to have two people remote. We had to struggle a little bit to get them in, but that struggle was worth doing. Governance, something that's been with us almost from the beginning. And when we had 4 working groups, this was dismissed out of hand. Now that we have many, many more working groups, it begins to look a little more appealing. In IETF, these are area directors. That's definitely not the right word we want here. We don't want little czars in charge of physical sciences or little czars in charge of biosciences. But someone who can coordinate across groups. This is one that the Secretariat could not do by itself. It's unlikely that we have a lot of people out there who are sufficiently knowledgeable and experienced to coordinate across, say, all the bioscience working groups who would have the time to do that. One idea that's come up is try and get graduate students to do some of the legwork and then get some senior people to volunteer their time to oversee that. Communications, clear winner. This has been a clamor since the very beginning, is improve the website search to include content of documents. Well, improve the website has been a constant theme. This is one specific aspect of it. It's a difficult, we don't all have problems with the website because the people working on it are stupid. It's a complicated organization to reflect. And complications, yes, you're welcome, Hillary. it is a complex organization to represent in web form. We appreciate their efforts, and we hope that they will continue to improve as it has, and this is one idea. Now, group chairs come in, of which I am one, come in for some criticism. They should, of course, be much better than they are, as we all should be in one way or another. But using online collaboration tools, perhaps some things that are set up, this is something that the Secretariat could help with. But there are certainly many experts out here on online collaboration tools. You have ideas. Perhaps you would like to contribute that to the Secretariat. Again, improving those working group chairs, more guidelines, and perhaps think about groups that are more mission-oriented as opposed to domain-oriented. But that, of course, would have to be from the bottom up. So this is just an idea for the members. I don't think if anyone proposed a challenge-driven group, working group or interest group at the moment, and it was well documented, the TAB and the Council and the OAB would say no to that. I think they would say yes. So that's just an idea for you guys. Group description, connector roles, RDA paid staff dedicated to coordination. So that goes back to the area director's idea as well. And that requires money. Mark had pointed out in the first session that the IETF area directors were paid. I niggled him on that, saying, no, they aren't paid by IETF, they're seconded by organizations. He pointed out that that's the same as being paid. So a clear difference in RDA and IETF is nobody's making billions of dollars off of what the RDA is doing, and none of the organizations involved in the RDA, I mean, the Purdue Library can't afford to have Michael come spend 100% of his time doing RDA work. As valuable as we would find that, Purdue doesn't have that kind of money. So that was going to require funding in some fashion. A formalized cross-group liaison, that would be another perhaps volunteer job or perhaps a paid job. But there again, we need more time, more resources. Group description, use common terminology, yes. This is an admirable goal. We tried that at the domain level. Perhaps it's a little easier to do in terms of activities and interests. And create a conceptual map. So that's happening now. I was unable to attend the landscape mapping working group breakout, which just ended. We also have the Atlas of Knowledge. Those of you who haven't seen the Atlas of Knowledge, that's a pretty interesting effort and looks pretty good so far. So that's going on. There too, it's a time-consuming operation. Now we also have the detailed voting results, which I think we won't go through. Lynn, these will be online. I'll just give you an example of what, so here they are. You can see, which things won by a landslide and which did not. So my main question, and here's where I'll try and get the little audience participation, and I have another 10 minutes or so, is, so what next? I mean, we could do this. This, to me, was interesting, and there's some advice here to the Secretariat, some ideas for the membership, and by itself, I think was worth doing, and maybe worth doing again. But what else should we do? What are the ideas that you have, or what are your thoughts about making operational some of these suggestions, especially the ones that require more time of us, the volunteers, more money for the Secretariat, hire more people, and so on. Are there any, things we haven't thought of? Any good magic bullets out there? Things that we should be thinking about?
But are you asking for comments?
Yes, please do. Yes, that's a general request for comments as well. And please use a microphone.
Okay, Fabrizio Gagliardi, Barcelona Supercomputer Center. Yeah, so I look to the list of proposals and questions. They look familiar in many other similar efforts I've been confronted with. I can give you some specific feedback. So making remote participation easier is a major challenge at plenaries. At the opening, so streaming, the cost of streaming, it was a noticeable part of the budget. It's expensive. And it killed everybody else electronic mail, which is actually probably good during the opening. So when the stream, it was taking all the bandwidth. So as a cost issue, and also in a way, it make presence less compelling. And clearly one of the big barriers to the plenary is that allow people that otherwise has hard time to communicate with others to be present and network. And since, after all, RDA has a very, very strong component of getting different group of different scientists really to look for, cross-disciplinary collaboration, I would be skeptical, in trying to put a lot of effort and the associate cost for remote connection to plenaries. What I rather do, or rather suggest, is that now that RDA is reaching a certain level of maturity, maybe to think more about regional events. So, because regional events, first of all, they bring people who are, more likely to be working together closer. It's much less expensive, to attend an event in Europe for Europeans than a global one. So maybe having plenary, which are at a higher level. So it's really the chairs, let's say the leadership, and maybe use them to run some, as you said, hackathons, competition for young adopters of the outputs of RDA. So you rethink it that way, and you run maybe more often regional event. We had here, for instance, the regional event of RDA Iberia, so Portugal and Spain, which was very successful, very well attended, and really much easier to organize, is much cheaper. So that is one of my reactions.
Okay, thank you. That was a very useful comment. Would you see, Fab, one more thing? Would you see those regional events then being reflected back into the plenaries, almost informal sessions? Yeah. Mark.
So I want to echo a little bit of what Fab said, that doing remote participation is expensive. You need to wire things into the house sound. You need to have a dedicated line for the remote participation that's separate from the Wi-Fi, et cetera. So that is expensive. We did do a survey, of a post-plenary survey several plenaries ago, and asked if people would be willing to pay a little bit more as registration to help support remote participation, and also if they'd be willing to pay a smaller registration to participate remotely. So maybe you pay $100 or something for remote participation and $300 for on-site. And it wasn't an overwhelming yes, but there was a general willingness to do that. So that's something we could look at as a way to try and address the revenue problem. I like the idea of regional events, but I think maybe what we should think about is maybe thematic events. Because I would be a little worried with regional events, which we do and I think are very valuable, but in the sense of that feeding that back up to the plenary, then we're kind of splitting the working groups, because we really want the working groups to have global representation. So if you're just having a European conversation about data types, and then you have an American conversation about data types, and then you have a Chinese conversation about data types, it doesn't necessarily bring it together. So I don't know if thematic events would necessarily save money, but that might be another way of looking at smaller events feeding into the bigger event.
Okay, we have time for another couple of comments.
Thanks. Andrew Trelaw from, let's do it, co-chair of TAB for this one. I think it's also important to distinguish between live streaming the big events like this and enabling remote participation in the work of the working groups. And so if I was going to choose one of those, I would put my efforts into making it easier for people to participate remotely in the work of the working groups and interest groups and BOFs. If we're an international organisation, we have to make it possible for the whole world to participate. We also have to recognise that not all of the world can either afford to come here, depending on the country we're in, get visas to come here, depending on what other things they've got going on in their professional and personal lives, be able to allocate the time to come here. So I think we have to continue the struggle of coming up with ways of supporting remote participation in the work of RDA, a core part of which happens in these events.
Kevin, somebody needs a microphone. And while that's coming, I'll just second what Andrew said. That's what I found valuable. It was in my particular breakout group, was having two guys who couldn't come be able to present their use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll third that. It was very valuable for us in the group we run, but I'd note also it has a different kind of expense in that I think it requires considerably more tech support for the people running the group. So we were lucky. Our session was the first one in the morning, which allowed us to arrive an hour early to try and get the remote participation working. It wasn't enough. We were still delayed, and that, I like to think I know how to work some technology. There were 3 of us on it. Maybe that was 2 people too many. I don't know, but yeah, it could be easier.
Okay. All right. Todd?
Todd Carpenter with NISO. As the co-chair of 2 working groups, I appreciate the comment that the chairs could do more. I think we're all imperfect in many ways. One of the themes, though, I've noticed in several of the groups is there's, say, 75 members of a working group, but 10 active people on a call, which makes pushing the work forward a little bit challenging. And one of the interest groups that I'm co-chair of has 170 some members. Not nearly 170 people are active. So while the chairs have an important role, I think the members of each of the groups also have a role in pushing activities forward. So this is a call for greater engagement at a grassroots level. Don't just push everything up.
Okay. So plea for better members as well as better chairs. Who can argue with that? Okay. All right. Any other comments? Yes, in the back there.
Thank you.
Identify yourself, please.
Nevelina from Cottage Labs, but really here I'm going to wear my staff at FOSDEM hat. FOSDEM is a conference for free and open software in Europe. This year it had 10,000 participants locally and about 100,000 people tuning in, live streaming. The whole conference is live streamed, about 40 rooms. It's all open source, and everybody at FOSDEM will be very happy to help you if you want some assistance in figuring out how to do live streaming sustainably. There is a lot of expertise, and people are very passionate about it. I know the person that's ahead of it. Yes, he's very passionate about it, definitely. They're all in Belgium, so they are, well, most of them are in Belgium. I'm not. But they are local, and if you're interested in this, there was a lot of interoperability discussions, and I think RDA can benefit from the software community and our experience of massive conferences and global communities and the desire to work together. So if you'd like to contact FOSDEM, you'll definitely get help.
Okay. Hillary is taking notes. Okay. Any other comments? All right. I can't resist. We have, 2 minutes left. I can't resist. The room is filled up. We're frankly shocked at how many people are still here. Can we have a show of hands, people who thought this was a useful exercise? Wow. Okay. Good work, Secretariat. It was a good idea. I'm done.
Thank you, Larry, for leading that. And thanks all of you for interacting on it. It's great to have these interactive discussions. I've enjoyed this part of the plenaries as well, and it's really good to get your feedback. So, I mean, it's an opportunity when we're in the room together, but we do respond to emails, and the Secretariat meets once or twice a week virtually, and we'd be very happy to see what we can do to implement some of these suggestions. And we have little less than 6 months to do that for the next time. And we have a 10th anniversary coming up, 10th plenary, so that could be an opportunity to see could we change some of the things and see what you'd like. So please continue to give us your feedback.